I'm Ken Campbell. Today I'm going to make a tonalist style painting. I want to capture a warm feeling with soft tones and gentle colors, like after a warm summer rain or when there's mist or smoke in the air. For this I'm referencing the Australian tonalist style, like that of Clarice Beckett, a painter from the early 1900s who worked in simple shapes and pastel colors. For me, the appeal of this style is all about using atmospheric effects to capture the feeling of dusk or dawn, mist, heat, or lighting effects with a very simple touch. I'm going to show you how I paint a landscape using my Impressionist brushwork, but in this tonalist style. Let's get into it. I try to compose my thumbnails to the same proportions as my final painting. In this case, 11 by 14 inches. So my thumbnails are 11 by 14 centimeters. As you can see, I always include drawing in the golden ratio, or phi, which I arrive at by multiplying heights and widths by a rounded factor of 62%, and lay in the golden median, which shows me where the sweet spots are for placing my centers of interest. I like to use simple shapes, so I start off with semicircles for rocks and triangles for coniferous trees, like mapping out the 100-yard view. Then after I settle on a design I like, I redraw it full size on the canvas using vine charcoal. You'll see that the very first things I draw is the center of interest by using the golden ratio and mapping on golden means and golden nodes again. I think this is pretty important stuff. Then I add the rocks, trees, and water as very simple outline shapes. Once I'm happy with my drawing, I put out my paints. I've listed my painting materials here, and I've also listed them in the accompanying notes below. To begin painting, I mix some Liquin and burnt umber and outline the main contours of my shapes, sometimes editing them as I work. Then I make a monochromatic value study using burnt umber and titanium white. I block in a limited palette of values, usually 5, beginning in the background and working towards the foreground, following atmospheric perspective with light desaturated background values to increasingly intense values in the foreground. Once the block-in is complete, I go back and sculpt some of the shapes, in particular the rocks, to add a little dimension with shadows. Generally, I keep my silhouettes flat in this stage, but a little sculpting here and there helps me see where I'm going. You'll notice I'm busy subtly editing tree shapes as I work. One large change does take place in the foreground. I don't like the continuous water line and decide to break it up by enlarging a tree and adding a foreground shoreline. I edit the tree shape down to the bottom of the panel and add darker values to make it seem closer. Now for the glazing. Because I'm going to use a broken color technique, I need to create a shade composition of color unified values. So I decided to glaze the monochromatic study with a thin coating of red glaze, made with cadmium red medium, Odourless mineral spirits, and Liquin. A shade is made when you add black, or in this case burnt umber, to a color to darken and desaturate it. That's the effect you get when you put a glaze over top of the monochromatic underpainting. I chose red for two reasons. Firstly, because I wanted to warm up the colors, and secondly, to contrast with the green I plan to use as the complementary color, to add a little optical bounce to the design. Another way of arriving here would have been to paint the whole monochrome all in reds to begin with, but I thought this would be faster, plus I get a wider tonal palette using the burnt umber underpainting. The final step is to paint broken color, which means mixing and applying brush-shaped tiles of color over top of the glazed monochromatic study, allowing the red glaze to show between marks. I begin with the background and work towards the foreground, careful to match the values of the underpainting. Notice here that I make the water reflections darker than the objects, which seems to telegraph the idea of reflections. The finished result of the broken color is lots of see-through. summary, number 1, drawing. Simplify all shapes and details. Make drawing work as contours and silhouettes. Number 2, monochrome. Make edges soft focus. Use 5 mid-tone paint values, no blacks and no whites. Number 3, glaze. Make the glaze that will work with your final color plan. I used complementary colors, but you could alternately use analogous colors for a different effect. Number 4, broken color. Use pastel colors. Do not use pure colors. Use desaturated colors, tints, grays, and shades. Match the values to the monochrome underpainting. I must say I really enjoyed learning the tonalist painting approach. In particular, there was a large emphasis on creating strong design, focus on using simplified drawing, special attention to using mid-tone values, soft edges, and mid-intensity colors, and of course, I paid a lot of attention to glazing and broken color brush technique. To me, it seemed like a gentler version of Impressionist style painting. As I worked through the various steps, I got a dozen new ideas for paintings in this style, which is always a good sign. I'm looking forward to sharing more tonalist sessions with you in the future. Thanks for joining me today. I hope there was something in this video that you can use in your studio practice. For information about my online streaming Tonalism art course, contact me at kencampbellfineart@gmail.com. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. To learn more, visit my website at kencampbellfineart.com. See you next time.